Okay, put some iron caps on an Iron Eagle block. Lightly stone the caps, the mating surfaces. Check the housing bore for size. And now we're going to check it for clearances as I put the caps on the block. Bearings have been wiped down. I use some MEK on them, but you can use lacquer thinner. I prefer to use a stronger solvent so we get all the stuff off of them. Of course, with any aftermarket block, you really want to make sure that you check your seal housing bore. This is a 400. A standard seal would probably leak in this block. It appears that it's never been line bored. I don't even think it was line honed. The caps still have the tattletale signs of Dart. They seem to like to mill their caps instead of grinding them. I prefer to have a nice smooth finish on my caps. These caps aren't very smooth, but like I said, I hit them with a stone. And of course, with these outer bolts, you always want to make sure that your washers have the chamfer facing up towards the radius of the bolt, and make sure that there's plenty of lube on them. I'm using ARP. Some guys use other lubricants. I guess it's preference. If you go with a certain lube and you check your stretch for your rod bolts on your connecting rods, some guys think that they come in quicker and better with another lubricant on them, but I just use the ARP, and then if the values don't come out to the stretch on the rods, I just increase the torque. Getting back to this being an aftermarket block, I measured this housing bore for the seal, and if I was to put a stock seal in it, it would probably leak. So I went to the 400 line bore seal. I always use the Brown Felpros. Just so I kind of know what the number is, but just to make sure it's 2909-1. And that's the seal that I'll be using. And it's actually 2 thousandths tighter than what the spec calls for, but I can guarantee you if I probably put the other seal in, it's going to leak. And if it leaks with this one, well, I tried. This is the first time for me putting this engine together. I'm not the first guy that's been in this engine, and I probably won't be the last. Well, I might be the last, because thinking about it, this poor dog's been through a few battles, and probably the next time around it would be wise for the customer to maybe look for a newer block, one that hasn't been used up. This block is getting to the point where it's probably beneficial to find another block. You know, it's all right now, but there's not a whole lot more fixing we can do to it. Okay, these are going to be 75. I'm going to start in the middle. The end one's 100. I'm just going to give them a little tug. I'm not going to pull them all up to 75. Got my knee on the block so it doesn't slide off and fall on the ground. I haven't had that happen. I don't particularly care to have it happen today. I could put it on an engine stand, but this table's clean and I'm lazy. When I get the crank in it, I'll put it on an engine stand and bag it. I've got a lot of other stuff in the shop that's going on right now, and I don't do any machining while I'm assembling blocks. Some guys have clean rooms. I don't have a clean room. I just don't do no work on anything for a couple days and let all the dust settle and put them together that way. I haven't had one come apart because of me being dirty, because I keep cleaning these things better than most people to clean their dinner plates. Okay, so that's 75. I'm going to do the rear cap on 100. There's 100. Three-eighths bolts are 40. These are 40. I have my dial bore gauge set off my mic that I measured off the crank. I use my mic as a standard. I set the mic off the crank journal. Then I put the dial bore gauge off my mic. I don't use plastic gauge, don't believe in it. If you're building engines and that's all you got, well, use it, but I can split bearing sizes and I can do it at a whole lot easier and a whole lot more accurate using a dial bore gauge. This is Sonnen. I recommend, if you're going to buy a dial bore gauge, Sonnen is the best. There's other companies that make dial bore gauges. These are the most robust. The bottom where the fingers and where it reads are, they're pretty hard to beat. They're expensive. If you're just doing this for a hobby, you can buy yourself an import. Mitsutoyos are pretty decent. I mean, anything's better than plastic gauge, but I guess if you don't have nothing, plastic gauge will work. But if you're splitting bearings and you're hunting for sizes, it's hard to beat a dial bore gauge. It really is. Clearances are where I want them. Number 4 and 3, I like them a little bit looser. When I say a little bit, I'm not going to get into clearances because there's some things I want to keep to myself, and clearances aren't a big deal. You can get on the internet and anybody will tell you what clearances you're supposed to run, supposedly, but I've been doing this for over 30 years and I kind of know what this thing's going to see, and I kind of know what clearances I want. Now, getting back to these two, they're a little bit looser. When I mean a little bit looser, I mean like 3/10 looser, which I can live with that. So I'm not going to split bearings. If you know anything about bearings, this is standard. So we have the luxury of going with an X, which is usually extra clearance by 1/1000. And if you end up coming out, say this is 1.5 thousandths and you want to, well, I put the bigger bearing on the bottom. That's where the crank rides. I want as much oil surface as I can get. Somebody else will tell you something different. I'm sure there is somebody that's got a different opinion on that, But I've put so many engines together, I don't even know how many I've put together, and that's the way I've always done it, and that's the way I'm going to keep on doing it. You know, if somebody else has got a different idea and you want to go with them, that's fine. This is just trying to help out somebody maybe that hasn't seen this done. Professional, this is old news. There's nothing to this. So I'm going to take the caps off now. I'm going to wash the crank. I'm going to set the crank in with the oversized seal for the line bore. I'm going to put that in, and the crank will be in it tonight. And then I'll start putting in the pistons. But I can live with what we got right here, and I'm more than happy with where I got the clearances. I had to go to a 1X complete. I thought I'd use a half of a 1X, but that wasn't giving me the oil clearance that I wanted. So we went to a 1X ACL bearing. That's it.